1, 2. Check.
Test, test. Test.
Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test. Test.
Welcome everyone and thank you for being here. I'm going to ask everybody to silence their phones, which I just did. We're going to start with a quick round of introductions. I do not need your life story. I just need your name and who you're representing today. And then after that, we will go right into our presentations and we'll go from there. So again, I'm going to start on my right side. So that'll be my right. I'll start with Councilmember Tellis.
We're just introducing ourselves?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Councilmember Kate Tellis. I am the newest representative for District 2 of Spokane City.
Chris Jordan, Spokane County Commissioner, District 1.
Ezra Eckhart, current Airport Board Chair.
Josh Kearns, Spokane County Commissioner, District 3.
Hold on a second. I'm going to jump back to Councilmember Dillon. As soon as you sit down, you can introduce yourself.
Councilmember Paul Dillon, fashionably late.
County Commissioner Mary Brooks, District 4.
Betsy Wilkerson, City Council President.
Lisa Brown, Mayor Spokane.
Al French, County Commissioner, District 5.
Kitty Klitsky, City Council Member, District 3, Northwest Spokane.
Good morning, everybody. Michael Cathcart, Spokane City Council member for District 1, Northeast and Downtown Spokane.
Good morning, County Commissioner Amber Waldrop, District 2.
Good morning, everyone. Sarah Dixit, newest council member for District 1, so Michael Cathcart, seatmate.
Thank you, everyone. And again, there's a number of staff people in the room, so thank you all for being here. With that being said, we're going to jump right into our airport presentation. And Dave, I did not do an introduction script for you. Okay, I'll let you just...
I've done that a couple times now. I think people.
Okay, in that case, welcome Dave Hardy, new CEO of Spokane International Airport.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Mayor, members of the council and commissioners. Honored to be here today and have the privilege to take the time and opportunity to update you. One of the core focus points of the board and of mine is to enhance dialogue and transparency between all of our organizations, including the airport. So certainly this does a lot to further that effort. I am going to have a couple of speakers today from the airport. Obviously I am still learning everything and I want to make sure that the updates that we're giving are accurate. And so not trusting myself to do that. So I'm just going to introduce all of them right now. And then as they come up, that'll save some time. But we do have our Chief Operating Officer, Ryan Sheehan, Chief Finance Officer, Rob Schultz, Chief Development Officer, Lisa Corcoran, Marketing and Public Affairs Director, Todd Woodard, our Air Service Development Manager, Joe Neville, Environmental Specialist, Keelan Huddleston, and then our General Counsel, Brian Wurst, all here with us today. So while I do want to take a few moments to share just sort of my first 4 months and the vision that we have going forward, I do know we have a lot of significant issues to discuss today. So I'm going to make these relatively brief. Actually, I had a team member point out that February 6th marked the 4-month mark of my time here. And the comment that followed that was, it seems like a lot longer than that. And I wasn't sure exactly how to take that. If it seemed that they knew me really well and it was great to be part of that, or if they couldn't believe that they had to deal with me for that long. So I'm going to go with the former on that. One of the questions that I continue to get, though, is what have you thought about the community? And certainly I've had the opportunity to do a hike and check out the restaurants and the scenes and all, but I have not really had a chance to explore that much yet because my focus has been solely on meeting the team at the airport and understanding those issues, really celebrating recent achievements. We just celebrated our 3rd consecutive year of record enplanements at, I think, 4.2 million roughly total passengers, 4.3 million. I want to leave that off. So 4.3 million total passengers. So a great achievement there. But then also understanding the key issues challenging the airport. I was asked before I came, what are sort of the things I wanted to accomplish when I got here? And I've always believed that it's hard to determine that until you really get there, because you can predetermine something and realize that's been tried, hasn't worked or whatnot. And so what has developed over the first 4 months has been a core set of about 4 different focal points that are going to take up the bulk of my efforts, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years or so. The first, should be no surprise, it's the team at the airport. I heard before I came throughout the industry and throughout our community that the team at our airport was second to none, and certainly that has borne out. I'm about halfway through one-on-ones. I make it a priority to meet with every team member at the airport on a one-on-one basis. I've had about 78 of those so far. There's about 140 employees at the airport. All of them have tremendous backstories. They're humble, hardworking, dedicated professionals. And really, it's their efforts that are the reason why the airport continues to serve as a primary economic driver in our community. Just as a reminder, the airport contributes in excess of $3 billion a year in economic development, and does that without any taxpayer or really municipal contributions, all completely self-sustaining, and it's their efforts that do that. So over the next few years, it's going to be imperative for us to continue to invest in our team, empower our team members, so that we ensure that we're neither stagnant nor satisfied in what is a very, very dynamic aviation industry right now. The second focus point that I have, which I think will get a lot of people's attention and will be involving a lot of individuals in this room, is a strategic planning effort. The airport, as you all know, encompasses a variety of different facets, really commercial passenger and aeronautical services, general aviation activities, and non-aeronautical business development. When I got here, one of the things that was a challenge for me was understanding how all of those interact and what the cohesive goal of all of those are. So a strategic plan is necessary, among other things, to help us align the goals and objectives of each of those different facets, ensure the staffing levels are appropriate and the organizational structure is appropriate for what we want to accomplish as an entity, identifies air service initiatives that help us to maintain global and domestic connectivity. And then probably some of the things that are very specific to the business park, we want to identify and recruit key aeronautical and non-aeronautical business partners to not only help strengthen the airport's self-sustainability, but create employment opportunities for our community. And then finally, ensure the compatibility of land utilization so that we're protecting current airport infrastructure, but that we remain cognizant of opportunities as they arise. As far as the timeline of that goes, we're working now to finalize a schedule of work that I anticipate being out on the street probably late March, early April. Having gone through strategic plans before, my gut tells me this is probably about a year-long project with a variety of internal and external input that will have to be done. And then that's going to actually roll right into our master plan in 2027. So the timing of that works really well. Third thing that I'll be focusing on will be the customer experience and consumer engagement. One of my favorite books, if you haven't read it, is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. Talks about giving people unexpected experiences at unexpected times. Truly, it's what I want our airport to become, making sure that we are the pinnacle of customer experience, both domestically and globally. The TREX program certainly is playing into that, and we want to continue that effort. And the people play a key role of that, not only internal with our customer service teams and employee committees, but externally when we're talking about our strategic partners, and then encouraging our team members at the airport to get engaged civically as well. And then finally, the last focal point will be economic development. Certainly air service, general aviation, business park, all play key roles in that. But we want to take advantage of the aeronautical cluster, the foreign trade zone, and available land, whether we're talking about leasing or selling, to continue that push on seeing development in the West Plains. So that's just a real quick snippet of my focal points, probably over the next 3 to 5 years. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know we want to keep moving. So unless there's any pressing ones, I'd like to turn it over on an air service update.
If there are no pressing questions, I'm going to ask that the electeds hold their questions till the end so we can at least get through the presentations. So please make a note of that, then we'll circle back around. Thank you, Dave. Who's next up?
Absolutely. I'm going to introduce Todd Woodard. He's going to get our air service presentation kicked off. Thank you.
Welcome, Todd.
Good morning. Thank you, Dave. We're real excited to have him pulling on the oar as part of our team. He's already encouraged us, given us a lot of vision going forward, been supportive of where we're going, and I think we're in a really good spot. So thank you, and thanks to the board and everyone that participated. I'm Todd Woodard. I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Affairs, and what comes under my department, under the marketing side, is business recruitment, retention, and expansion. And a subset of that would be air service development. So air service development is about retaining, expanding, and recruiting new service. Under the public affairs side, of course, is oversight of local, state, and federal legislative and regulatory activity. And we partner with other members of the community to execute that. On the air service side, and it's a common refrain in our industry that air service development is not like ordering pizza. I don't call airport or airline X and say, hey, I want to go to Timbuktu. It doesn't work like that at all. It never really has. And it has to be an intentional, dedicated process to going through and advocating for your community and your region. And what we do, there's the FAA or the airlines and airports for that matter, all see the same data. They all see the same data from the FAA and the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. What we're charged with is the why. Why are people going to city X? Why do you need more service? Why is the timing maybe a little bit off because people really want to get to Dallas or to Houston or Milwaukee? How do you work with your local business community and chart that? How do you communicate back that a business in Spokane is expanding or a business in Raleigh has added an additional field office in the Spokane Valley? How do you communicate that back? Allows them to make great decisions. Good morning, council members Zabone. So we do that very intentionally. About a year and 7 months ago, we hired what I would say, and I would say this if he's in the room, and I've said it when he's not in the room, he's arguably the best air service development individual in the nation. And I've known Joe a long, long time. Comes from a long background of working with United, Northwest, Continental Airlines. He also has airport experience. He knows the way network planners, which is the primary group we engage with at the airlines, work and think. He uses or leverages a variety of different data. We use cell phone data, which is called mobile analytics. Sometimes that's overlaid with credit card data. We use census data. We use license plate data because we have had a lot of inward migration. So when somebody comes to Spokane and trades in their driver's license, we know what state they've come from. We don't know what zip code, but at least it starts to provide a picture. We work with the universities in the region to say, where are your what are the home zip codes, not addresses, home zip codes of your out-of-state students. So then we get a sense of where they're coming from. They're, a big portion, I'll be honest with you, out-of-state come from the Bay Area. Second will be the LA Basin. So we watch all those trends to put together a site picture that Joe will go back and constantly communicate the demand and where they go from, come and go. So it's a very intentional process. It's relationship-based, getting them to Spokane, getting us to headquarters, being in front of Spokane all the time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joe Nibble, our manager of Air Service Development. He'll just go through a few slides.
Thank you, Todd. Great to be here. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Before we start, I'd like to just give you a phrase that we use in the Air Service Development circle quite a bit. Air Service Development is a marathon, not a sprint, meaning that growing air service is often a long road and a lot of effort required to move the dial in terms of air service. So in my past, we've brought to fruition a lot of new markets at the previous airport I was at as well. Some of these take, even up to a few years to develop. So you need a lot of patience in this industry. But I'd like to walk you through a quick update of where we are at Spokane in terms of capacity and also air service this year. So if we take a look at scheduled seats, this graph is a little busy, but if you look at the purple line, that is 2026. Those are monthly departing seats. And you can see that in 2026, we're up significantly in the first quarter, first 3 months of the year, up a little bit in the summer and up in the fall as well. But take a look at last summer, the blue line, and you can see we were actually up 13% year over year. A lot of that extra capacity, that was like Chicago coming online with American and Southwest, Frontier coming back to the market. That capacity is rolling into 2026. So as we move into 2026, where we are now, first quarter, our scheduled seats are actually up 12% year over year. So we're seeing a pretty big increase. As we go into summer this year, it'll flatten out a little bit. We won't gain another 13% year over year, but we'll be up a little bit year over year. January through September right now, scheduled seats were up 7% year over year. We expect that to come down a little bit as airlines finalize their schedules. And then taking a look at the combined Spokane region, this would include Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and Sandpoint. Using mobile analytics data, our population is about 810,000 in the region right now. That is an 11% increase over 2018, pretty big growth. But if you look at the next 5 years through the end of the decade, another 12%. So why do we bring this up? Airlines love to see this kind of information. It's the data that they don't have that we're providing for them. But something else that really catches our eye with this data is, our average median age is about 40 years old, 39.5. Inbound age, people migrating into this area are a lot younger, 34. And then if you look at, Sandpoint, 32. If you took out Spokane, the average would be lower. But this kind of information really captures airlines' attention because these people have a lot of disposable income to travel, and they tend to travel back to where they originated from as well. Spokane's scheduled seat growth. We are outpacing the U.S. If you look at Spokane scheduled seats in 2025 on the far right, let's see, right here, up 8.4% over 2019. And then the thing that's even more striking is last year, 2025, our scheduled seats were up 4.1% over year, compared to the U.S. only up 1.2%. And if you look at the U.S. just domestic, seats were only up 1%. So we're outpacing the U.S. in terms of scheduled seat growth. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. We have such a huge catchment area that's population is growing, people migrating into the area, and a few other factors. So a little highlight here of some different metrics. If we start up in the upper left-hand corner, so the great thing about Spokane is we don't have one big airline or two big airlines. We have, 3 airlines that make up 80% of our seats. Alaska, Delta, and Southwest are our largest, followed by United and American. And then we have 3 ULCCs, or what we call ultra low-cost carriers, Allegiant, Frontier, and Sun Country. Upper right, if you look at passenger share, again, those 3 large carriers make up the largest percentage of our passengers here at Spokane. So a really good competitive mix. Our total, as Dave mentioned earlier, our total passengers, we hit another record in 2025, over 4.3 million passengers. That's up 8% over 2019 levels, up a little bit, 2% over 2024. And we expect that modest growth to continue going into the future years. One other thing that's kind of driven a lot of growth at Spokane and across the country actually is what we call seats per departure. So we're at 120 average seats per departure in 2025. That's up 9% over 2019 levels. So if you can imagine, every single flight leaving Spokane has an average of 10 more seats. That's a lot, and you're filling 80% of those. So that's a lot more traffic to the airport, a lot more economic impact to the community. And so where do we fly today? We have service out of Spokane to 85% of Spokane's top 20 metro markets. And so you can see the dots on the map where we fly. A lot of these are big West Coast cities. A lot of our traffic, over 60%, flows to the West Coast, along the West Coast and mountain region. But we do have service all over the country, even as far as Atlanta. We picked up more service to Chicago last year. And then this year, this summer, we're happy to announce some seasonal service to Anchorage, year-round nonstop service to Orange County. That's on Alaska, so is Anchorage. And then United Airlines will be starting seasonal weekend service to Houston, Bush Intercontinental. That's something we've worked with them quite a bit on, and happy to see that this summer. And so it's important that we have service to our hubs and big business points on the West Coast, like San Jose, Oakland, LAX. But service to our hubs creates a lot of connectivity. So having service to all these major big hubs that we have today allows us to have nonstop and one-stops to over 240 destinations across the U.S. and 6 destinations in Canada. So you can pretty much get everywhere you want to go in the U.S. and Canada with one stop. There are probably a few little cities out there where you might require 2. But the other great thing is not only domestically, but internationally, you can fly nonstop or one stop to 74 worldwide destinations. So pretty much any major city. Again, if you're flying to Nepal, you might have to require 2 stops, but that's pretty much standard across the U.S. So we've got great connectivity. And again, it's mostly because of being plugged into the right hubs. So we use a lot of public data in what we do, as Todd mentioned, DOT data, load factor data. But what we bring to the table when it comes to talking to airlines is other sources of data that pique their interest and allow them to make better decisions. So second home data is one of those. Second homes are an important driver of air traffic. If you can imagine, if someone has a second home here and they live in the LA or Orange County area, they're going to go back and forth a couple times a year at a minimum. Of course, second homes, a lot of the owners live in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of that could be drive traffic, but we see a lot of second homes that are based in California, specifically the Bay Area, Southern California, and really, really specifically the LA Basin, as well as Phoenix. When Alaska started Orange County service last month, one of the indicators they told us helped them make the decision was second home data, because a lot of second home owners live in the Orange County area, as you can imagine. And so I'm going to turn this over to Todd to talk a little bit. He's been in the community much longer than I have and can speak to some of these partners we have in the community.
It's a reflection of the gray hair. So I just wanted to put this slide up. This is our concluding slide, is that we work with a lot of different business organizations, community groups, businesses, as we collect data, as we share new flight information to the area hotels where they can take that information and share, as Joe, for the example, to Orange County, for instance. They can go out to their database and say, hey, we just made it easier for you to get to Spokane or Coeur d'Alene. We use this also when we work with the destination marketing organization, Visit Spokane, or we use it for Spokane Sports to help them bid on athletic events or conferences or annual meetings. We really try and strive to have a hand-in-glove relationship with them, and they've been great. We have a really, really good community partners as we go forward. So that's just the sum total, is that we don't do this in a vacuum. We do this very intentionally, and we do it with all of our groups as well. And we were going to hold questions to the very end.
Yes, that'd be great, Todd. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you the end?
That is our concluding remarks.
All right. I will entertain questions.
I did have one follow-up. Just, when we looked at the map of all of our nonstops, and the connecting service and the global, oftentimes we think of it in terms of where do we want to go? Where we've got to get to Wichita for whatever reason. What's also almost more important is how does that make it easier for the outside world to get to Spokane, because this is where they leave their treasure. And most economic development, most business relocations start with a visit, whether it's leisure or business or calling on a customer. And that's particularly post-pandemic, that's become even more true. People are discovering the area and wanting to say, gosh, I could live this great 4 months, great 4 seasons that we have. So we also look at it in terms of those as well.
Thank you. Councilman Cathcart.
Yeah, just really quick, I'm wondering, and I think obviously thinking about the business aspect is really important from an economic development standpoint, but also how much does, perhaps recreational options play into how you are viewing this? Family destinations, places people like to vacation, new something, in a city somewhere that's going to draw a lot of interest. How much does that play into it?
It plays into a lot. And it's funny because I'm smiling, I'm laughing. When Joe, it's great to have a fresh set of eyes. When you've been, I'll be honest, 30 years, I sometimes don't see the forest from the trees. But having a fresh set of eyes and having Joe come in with his vast experience, the thing that he was blown away. And when we meet with an airline, the thing that surprised him the most was just exactly that. The number of outdoor recreational opportunities. It's like, why isn't this region just exploding with guests because of the access to the lakes, access to the rivers, the hiking, the access to the national parks that we have, as well as all the sporting events. We're a very outdoor, community-driven environment. And that's what Oftentimes, that's what businesses miss. I mean, I've heard that a lot, particularly in Southern California's businesses, that we don't have a sense of cohesion. I don't have other peers to talk to. I don't know who my other peers are. I can't do best practices. I can't share those. In a community like Spokane, where collaboration is almost in our DNA, it's really one of our value statements. Joe, do you want to?
I'll echo that and say, Coeur d'Alene, if you look at the numbers, Coeur d'Alene is a great leisure engine for us. About 29% of the travelers that are coming in here on an annual basis are headed to Coeur d'Alene or Sandpoint and to the east of here. And if you look at United's Houston decision, which is to fly here this summer on the weekends, it's a toe in the water to start with. But one of the things they look at and reasons they're doing this is because of Coeur d'Alene and our access to the outdoors.
On that score, we work really closely with Red Mountain, Schweitzer, the other ski resorts to highlight how do we help their customers? How do we help their business model grow too? That's a really good question, because leisure and business are both aspects of our opportunity.
Councilmember, Commissioner Walder.
Yes, just a quick follow-up on that. I mean, I can think of at least 3 times that I've had friends from college or that live on either coast flying into Spokane to go to Glacier, to go to Yellowstone. So have you thought, how is that part of your thought process in terms of, we are kind of the only regional airport, in between Seattle and Minneapolis, right?
Right. So, not to get too far into it, but our catchment area is rather large. There's not a big competing airport for 4.5 hours, Seattle. So we retain a lot of the traffic from this region. In fact, we're the same size city as Colorado Springs, Colorado. They leak about 70% of their traffic to DIA because it's right next door. We leak virtually nothing. So that's a real positive for here. But we even sell, 4.5 hours to Glacier seems like a long way, but it's really not in the West. And we sell that to airlines, so they recognize that it's one of the attributes of this region.
And we have a specific slide on the access to Glacier National Park. Joe and I share an airline executive friend who has a side business in Missoula that's on bicycle tours. He flies into Spokane because it's the only place he can, oddly enough, rent a pickup truck. And I think part of that is, again, we're this regional transportation hub. We're regional also for rental cars, at least on the enterprise, Alamo and National side. So Bob flies in here, he and his wife, and that's his access to Western Montana.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dillon, I'm going to take this question. I'm going to move on. And if you're interested, contact Todd for a tour of the airport.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just be really quick. And thank you for this presentation. Just on some of, I guess, telecommuting and what that growth looks like, because I know we have a lot of people that might live in Spokane but work in San Diego, or you mentioned Raleigh, for example, too, San Francisco and Seattle. So are you seeing kind of an increase in some employment opportunities and people using that as more of an option now that you have these direct flights?
Yeah, and so we looked at second home, another data which we didn't mention, it's migration data, which we do have, which is cell phone based. We are able to get that data and show that to airlines. And it kind of underlines what we saw with second homes. We're also seeing a lot of migration from, you would expect, the West Coast, Southern California, LA Basin specifically is huge, Phoenix. And it's not just people coming in here migrating. It's when people leave here, they also come back toward the line. And so both directions matter. So that is really important data that airlines don't have and that we're able to share with them and helps move the dial.
Well, thank you. Todd?
Cool. No, I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present to you. We don't often get this type of a great audience. And as Council President Wilkerson said, please email me if I can ever answer any other questions for you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next mate up is Ms. Lisa.
Good morning. Lisa Corcoran. I'm the Chief Development Officer for the airport. So that includes Spokane International Airport, Felts Field, our business park, and then the most recent new product, the rail truck transload facility. So I oversee planning, design, construction, and environmental components of our facilities. What I wanted to talk to you about today is really the terminal renovation and expansion program. It is a very large program, the largest program that we've done here at the airport. It is because of all of that regional growth that Todd and Joe spoke about, all of the emplanements that we're seeing come through the airport, and then just all of the businesses as well, whether it's light industrial or commercial businesses surrounding the airport that are adding to that growth and that capacity and demand need. A few years back, in 2 years, we grew over 23%. And so that put us in a position where we had to drastically improve. It could have been parking areas, it could on the land side, it could be airfield because we're experiencing and seeing larger jets. So we're having to reinforce the airfield. And then the terminal. You know, when people come through and at those peak times, you're seeing the queue lines expand. So we really had to improve that. We're taking it a step further and really looking at what is that short-term, mid-term, and long-term growth that we have to accommodate. We're at a really good point right now where we've done Concourse C, and if you have not gone through that, that is a drastic change, not only in the space and the capacity and the boarding bridges, but just also the feel. It's a very quiet space, a calm space. We're going to continue that through the terminal. So I'll walk you through just a little bit about the program. So what you're seeing here are all of these shaded areas. The yellow was the first Concourse C expansion. We call that phase 1. So it was the west expansion. We moved over and expanded also the ticketing area. When we have more boarding bridges, more boarding areas, we have to accommodate also the ticketing side. So we added 6 new ticket counters. They're all shared use or common use. And what that means is if an airline needs one more ticket counter or boarding area, they're all electronically digitized and remotely used, where an airline could come in and then log in and then be efficient. So we're not just isolating those spaces just to the airlines. There's multi-use and function, and that creates efficiency for us as well, because we can only build so much and then accommodate all of that capacity. So that's a very efficient way of developing. The green area and blue area, those are what is under construction right now. The blue area is the most, the newest, that is anticipated to be finished in Q3 of this year. So at the end of this year, we are going to be pretty fortunate to have Concourse C fully developed, 9 gates. We no longer have ground boarding, which is very good, especially during the winter months, the rainy seasons. So all capacity is now driven and accommodated through boarding bridges. What you're seeing here on the purple, the big central processing box is what we call it, is right now what we're working at. We're working on Central Hall. It's going to be a very good expansion. What that does is consolidate the passengers to one screening checkpoint area, consolidate the passengers to one bag claim area. I'll walk through those as well. The screening checkpoint area right now during peak times, the queuing lines are backed up. And in the aviation industry, you don't look at the load times. You have to accommodate during the peak times, right? You have a throughput of no more than 30 minutes, and really trying to emphasize that for the passenger experience. Those are the times that we have to accommodate. And so as we look at our growth, we're seeing both screening checkpoint areas at their capacity. And those areas, you really can't expand without doing something of this magnitude. So that program is really important to us. This will allow for up to 11 screening checkpoint lanes, really efficient for TSA. For airports, when you have a certain amount of emplanements, there's an equation that TSA uses and says this is the number of TSA agents that you will get. When we have 2 screening checkpoint areas, it makes it very inefficient. So by consolidating that, the security, the efficiency, the experience will also improve. Looking at the lower level, that will be a consolidated bag claim area. Right now, we have very small bag claims, and then even the carousels themselves are undersized. They're also outdated. Some of those you cannot purchase anymore. So our maintenance group is, refabbing and developing the pieces and parts for those bag claims. So we will be accommodating up to 5 new bag claim areas, and that's in the future. Right now, we need 3, but we have to build this for the future. Or else we're going to find ourselves in the same position of being constrained. So these are large claim areas. As you can see, it'll also allow just a lot more space for people to regroup, families to collect their loved ones and baggage. The main area that also is an improvement is going to be the front curb. That whole experience right now with all the metered parking areas and where do people park with Concourse C, the outside parking, economy parking, the garage, all of that's going to be consolidated as well as part of our landside improvements. If you've traveled at the airport, you've probably seen parking projects year after year, and we're going to continue. There is a big mission to consolidate those parking products, and that's all under the master plan, just like the terminal expansion is. At the end of the day, a parking product will be, if you want economy, you can take the shuttle and go up to the terminal. That's the furthest parking area to the north. You can do the outside parking, so you can walk to the terminal. Then you can also use the garage. The garage is also going through an expansion of its own. So all of those will be consolidated. The front curb will also be a little more efficient. We're going to get rid of the metered parking area where it's really constrained and open it up. So there will be chutes in there for TNCs, which is Uber and Lyft, all the shuttles, hotel shuttles, buses that come through and drop off the sports athletes or tourists. So really thinking about it from a global perspective of how does the master plan fit what we're doing and then meet the capacity and the demand. So we're very in tune with that, looking at it from a very long-term growth, because you can only do this once. And once you build those walls and start building in those screening checkpoint areas, it is very hard and also expensive to redo. So the front curb, we're going to add a couple of touch points for departures and arrivals. What you're seeing here is an overview. The main feature of the structure is Central Hall, the 2-story structure with some canopies. So when people drop off, they have a shelter. Same with the TNC, so Uber, Lyft will also experience that. This is just looking at it from one perspective, but on the right-hand side, there's also driving lanes, and you can see some crosswalks and just keeping that same finish and calmness to the airport. All right, with that, happy to take any questions on the expansion.
Any on expansions before we go to the next part? I'll just say, being an airport board member, it's amazing things happening at the airport. So again, I encourage you to go out there as electeds and tour for yourself. Continue, Lisa.
Thank you very much. All right, as part of that airport update, we also wanted to update the community on the PFAS investigation. We were pretty fortunate to do some outreach with KSPS and disseminate the information that we had to date. We have an updated website where you can look at all of the information that's been submitted to Ecology, our reports, our data, and the current findings. This is a long process, and we understand the concern and just the sensitivity that it brings to the airport and the community. We are a federally mandated facility, and what that means is to operate and maintain a commercial airport, the FAA regulates the products we use. This is also known as AFFF. So that's part of the foam that aircraft and firefighters use for emergencies. Fortunately, as you can read in the site assessment report that's on the website, we've used this at very de minimis levels, right? We have not had emergency incidents where we have had to deploy it. We've done it during testing and regulated testing with the FAA. So we've been able to document that. I'm going to pass it over to Keelan. He is our environmental specialist. What he's going to do is just go over through a couple of those key points that we've been able to extrapolate from all of the historical aspect of what Spokane International is. And then I'm going to come back and talk about what are those next steps? Where are we at right now? What are the findings? Where do we see the airport going? So Keelan?
All right, thank you, Lisa, and good morning, everybody. So like Lisa mentioned, I'm going to kind of touch on a few points, one of them being the site history. One of the my favorite things about working in the environmental industry is that the history of a site is so important to the environmental considerations of today. And so if you're not familiar with the airport has a long and storied history with the military. And so in 1939, the military began construction of what was known as Sunset Field. And then later in 41, the Department of War purchased Sunset Field from the city and county and continued management of that field until about 1948, when management of Geiger Field was returned to the city and county after the war. And then in the 50s, the Department of War resumes operations and management at Geiger Field, as it's known in the 50s, and that was kind of during the Korean War conflict. And then after a couple decades, the military begins to move their operations to what's currently Fairchild Air Force Base. And then continuing in the early 2000s, the Army National Guard moved some of their operations to Fairchild. And then finally, about 2010, the Air National Guard moves to Fairchild Air Force Base, ending majority of military involvement at the airport. And I say majority because there still is a portion of property next to the airfield that the Air National Guard occupies, and we'll touch on that here in a bit. So with this investigation, of course, the airport is under an enforcement order with the Washington State Department of Ecology. So I'll just briefly kind of go into what that enforcement order looks like, what's a part of that enforcement order, and kind of where we're at in the enforcement order. So the enforcement order is broken down into about 7 tasks. However, there's about 3 main tasks. We're currently in task 1, you see in top left here, and it's kind of highlighted blue because that's currently where we're at. We completed the site assessment report, as Lisa mentioned, is available on our website for the public. And what that site assessment report was is we, working closely with our consultant, we gathered as much information as we could about the history of the airport, and our consultant spent hours and days going through hundreds of pages of documents as it pertained to the history, as it pertained to any type of environmental investigations, any type of remediations that occurred on the airfield or next to the airfield. They took many hours, of course, evaluating the region and considering the region in other potential sources of PFAS. And then that led us in the initial PFAS investigation. And so that initial PFAS investigation built on the site assessment report, where in the site assessment report, some of the findings were basically identifying areas on the airfield and off the airfield where PFAS may or could be present. And so that initial PFAS investigation then took those areas, and then we continued and went out and collected soil and groundwater samples to confirm any of those findings we had in the site assessment report. And so that's where we're at right about now. And then within that task 1, task 1C, as we like to call it, is the RIFS work plan. So RIFS work plan, or the remedial investigation feasibility study. The remedial investigation, the field work for that will be task 2, but of course the work plan development is in task 1. And that work plan is going to basically document and describe how we are going to execute the remedial investigation, where the remedial investigation is, again, going to continue to build off that initial PFAS investigation, but it's going to be much more in depth on the airfield, off the airfield, trying to really pin down where these sources may be and where PFAS may be present in the environment. And as I mentioned, task 2 will be doing the remedial investigation field work. Task 3 will be providing that draft remedial investigation report, what we did, how we did it, when we did it, what those findings were. And then we'll have the draft feasibility study report. Now, the feasibility study, again, building off all the work we've done, building off the remedial investigation, the feasibility study will consider options on how to address the PFAS contamination. And it's very important, the word feasibility. We're going to be evaluating options that will be feasible, that will make sense, and that we can actively implement. And then we have tasks 6 and 7 I want to highlight. Those are also in blue because those tasks we'll be working on concurrently with task 1, task 2, and task 3. Task 6, the quarterly groundwater monitoring. We had just recently began that monitoring period in January of this year. Task 7, submit monthly progress reports to ecology. And of course, we've been doing that for about a couple years now. So kind of zoom in a little bit, recent activities that we've completed. As I mentioned, we just began quarterly groundwater monitoring in Q1 of this year. So we completed that in January. We finalized that SAP-QAP, or the Sampling Analysis Plan and Quality Assurance Project Plan, in December. And what that is, it's kind of similar to a work plan. So it's kind of guiding our field crews on how they're going to take the samples in the field, what they're going to do with the samples, the quality assurance that comes with evaluating the data, and the quality controls with handling that data and those samples. And that report for the Q1 sampling event will be due in draft form to ecology at the end of March. And then we're also working on the draft IPI report. So we submitted that draft IPI report in January of this year. We're currently reviewing comments from ecology, working through those with our consultant, gathering some comments and questions that we may have on those comments. And then we'll provide that draft report revised back to ecology in about the middle of March. And then, as I mentioned, the next step is going to be that RIFS work plan. That RIFS work plan will be due to ecology about 120 days after the IPI report is finalized. So here we're taking a look at aerial view of the airport. We have this black and white border. That is the primary airport area. So that is the area identified in the enforcement order for the investigation area. Then we have this magenta line that is our airport air operations area. And that's just, mostly kind of focused on the security aspect of the airport. So that's where it's fenced off. So in order to get past that gate or that magenta line, you need someone like me or Lisa to kind of take you back there and show you around, maybe Todd for a tour one of these days. So what we have on here is, as I mentioned, the site assessment report. We considered areas on the airfield that may be sources of PFAS. And so based on that site assessment report, we identified and investigated these blue and yellow stars. And as I mentioned, we're looking at places on the airfield. We're looking at places off the airfield. One of those places, adjacent to our airfield was that waste energy facility, Park Ave Drive. There's been known contamination in that area over the years. There's been previous reports written about that area. Then we have that blue star there, which is the Geiger Correctional Facility. Again, another area with known environmental contamination. And it's actually still being monitored by another consultant. And now we'll take a look at these yellow stars. So those yellow stars identify areas on the airfield where in that initial PFAS investigation, we actually identified elevated concentration of PFAS. And then, most importantly, the joint fire training area. The joint fire training area is where we have found the highest concentrations of PFAS on the airfield. Then, of course, it's a joint fire training area. So that, again, kind of plays into the history of the airfield, that joint fire training piece. The Air National Guard was active in fire training activities in this area where they would, there would be joint fire training where fires would be sustained, initiated, and then AFFF would be sprayed on those fires to put the fires out. Now, what's not on here is some other regional sources of PFAS. And that's something that Lisa's going to touch on here in a couple other slides. And so right now, I will hand it over to her for those.
You know, just from what Keelan described, you know, there's a lot that goes into this. This is not something we take lightly. This has a lot of information, it has a lot of reporting, and it has a lot of just overall investigation. That is the enforcement order. It's a big investigation of what occurred, where did it occur, and are there conveyance or pathways? That's really what we want to understand. All of this, you know, it does take time. All of the quarterly groundwater monitoring that we're doing, and then the previous monitoring that we've done under the enforcement order, all of that is playing a big part into the data-driven approach that we've always said we would take. Let the science lead us to where we need to further investigate. Let the science let us identify where we potentially need to clean up and address. So that is our whole approach. One of the areas, and also listed in the site assessment report in the website, that, you know, that it is public information. We've had communication with Fairchild Air Force Base. They've been good partners. They did let us know of a ditch, and this is the image that you're seeing, that, you know, where they do their own fire training areas. There are lagoons onto their, you know, on their property. You know, let's see if I can point to that here. There's their fire training area. This blue line, everything west of that or to the left, that's Fairchild Air Force Base. What you're seeing here on the red line, that's everything east of that is Spokane International Airport. They came to us and let us know about an easement that they have where they drain all of their lagoon, you know, detention area into a ditch that runs into the airport. Been good partners at sharing that information. They've also begun their testing too, and they provided that information, which is also public information. Unfortunately, just the nature of PFAS, there are high concentration levels with the base, and just the operations of an active fire training facility. That is something that we do have to incorporate into our investigation, as well as to where does this lead us and where does it go? Because you can have presence of PFAS on the soil. So if the soil's contaminated, is it in the groundwater? If it's present in the groundwater, is it moving forward or further down into the paleo channels, into the aquifer, into the basalt rock? Where is it going from there? That's all playing a part into what we're doing in this investigation. Keelan had identified earlier on, you know, you had the blue stars and then the yellow stars. The yellow stars indicate really where is the highest presence of PFAS. And we're seeing it where it makes sense, where we had to, you know, perform federally mandated testing with the FAA. In order to keep our certification to run a commercial airport, the FAA comes on and asks us to discharge a triple F. And that means we have to show through our fire trucks, our operations of how we would handle emergency responses in the event that we would have one. To date, we have not, but in that event, where, you know, how would we use the equipment? So what you're seeing here on the yellow stars, those are where it makes sense for us. And the tests, that data-driven approach has shown that this is where it's present. So the 3 stars, just to briefly go through them, are the historical firehouse. So that was our fire station before the new one was built. And that is in this location here. If you travel, it's right just to the east of the ramp, the commercial ramp. The current firehouse, fire station, that is currently where we operate and where our firefighters live. And then the joint training area, again, the historical training facility back in the day where the military facilitated that with their equipment, their own chemical, and allowed the military and the airport to train on that. Since it's been, you know, transferred over to the airport, so we own that area. But there is a lot of historical information there that's really helping us understand those concentration levels. That is the highest concentrated level for PFAS. So we are exploring that and looking at the conveyance, just pathways as to where it's going to go. What you're seeing here in the orange hatched area, that's the Air National Guard, where they currently exist now. Their operations have transitioned and changed over time. But as it's been documented, there's reports under the ecology website and in our site assessment report. The previous practice of the Air National Guard as well, makes very similar to any military function and operation, is that they would maintain their vehicles. One of the key points that why we're looking at it is because there are known sources of contamination that have been documented, somewhat cleaned up, and then some have been left in place. But the practice was to release and empty degreasers from their equipment onto the ground. Those degreasers, as we know it now, a lot of them have PFAS present in those degreasers. So again, as we're looking at upgradient, what could have come onto the airport property, what has been on the airport property due to our own operations ourselves, and then what's moving forward. All of that plays a big equation as to where, what's there, what's present, and where is it going. We're currently doing that investigation and looking at pathways. Just want to point out, the enforcement order that we have with ecology, it's a very aggressive one. And if you have not read it, you see the chart in there, and there's 30 days to respond to one thing, one, action, 60 days, 90 days. That's a pretty aggressive action. We've complied with all of those schedules. We have a very good consultant, GSI. They're nationally known and help airports because they are the PFAS expert. We've retained them. They've been helping us through that with their partners, explore not only the soil, the groundwater, the investigation, but also the reporting, and then how it's handled nationally. We are not the only airport in the nation. There are a lot of military airports out there that are going through this. There's also commercial airports that are going through this as well. So it's very much a national issue on how to handle and how to address PFAS contamination. But what this chart is merely just to point out the aggressive nature and the compliance that we've done at every single step of the way. We started in March of 2024 when we received the enforcement order, and we're here in January of 2026. About almost reaching 2 years of all of the testing and the reports that you'll see on the website. With our partners next door, they did start earlier with their site inspection, which is pretty much lined up to our site assessment report. Different terminology, but the same type of report, historical and then analytical. They're currently in pause mode. Sounds like for 5 years, potentially more. So we've pretty much reached where they're at in the same effort of what have they found? What have we found? What are the next steps? We are moving forward with those next steps, and just want to, assure the city, the county, our community partners, we are committed to doing the right thing. It is a data-driven approach, and that's the way that we're going to, approach it. We always have, and we're finding good information. And as we know more, we'll continue to post it. We'll work with ecology as it's final. Then they will post it as well, and we'll continue with the next steps of the enforcement order. So that leaves us to those next steps, and really where we sit. Keelan mentioned we submitted a draft, initial PFAS investigation. What that means, that's a really important milestone for us. While it's still a task 1B, it's a really important one because it's starting to look at conveyance. It's starting to look at where are all of the subsurface, the geology, the hydrogeology, and then soon the breakup, the makeup of all of the PFAS. Where is all that going? So there's a lot of data in this. It's a thick report, has a lot of analytics in it and also has a lot of the science behind it with our partner at GSI. So it's in review mode. And we did receive those comments yesterday. We are meeting with Ecology tomorrow to also talk about our initial PFAS investigation report and where that goes to in order to get it finalized. We're going to continue to obtain more data. Unfortunately, this takes time. We are in a good position where we've been working at this, almost 2 years, and we have good information to help us take those next steps as to where we're going to go. Continue to investigate upgrading off sources. I think that's a really key part. We're seeing, and it's in our reports, the analytics show that while we did deploy a AFFF that has PFAS, it's been at de minimis levels compared to, unfortunately, our partners next door with Fairchild Air Force Base. You can see the hundreds of thousands of parts per trillion, where we're in the hundreds of parts per trillion. So it's very different. And we do need to take that into consideration. Obviously the levels vary. There's higher, lower, no detection on both parties. So we're looking at all of that to understand where this leads us.
And Lisa, before you continue, how close are you? Because I want to leave time for some questions.
2 minutes away or less.
Okay, 2 minutes.
All right. And then just prepare the draft remedial investigation and feasibility study. Those are the next steps to say, okay, once we've found this, how can we start addressing it or potentially addressing it? A couple days ago, as you may have read, city, county, and the airport were issued interim action and with a very specific scope of work. It's too early to update what that means. We are meeting with Ecology this afternoon with all three parties to address that. But once we have clarity as to what that looks like, what that means schedule-wise, next steps, we will report on that. And that
Thank you.
concludes my
That was a
update.
lot. That was a lot. I'll entertain some succinct questions for Lisa going forward. Commissioner Walder?
Thanks, Lisa. The ditch and the water that's getting pushed to that ditch between the Fairchild Air Force Base and the airport property. Is there a way to work with Fairchild on a different approach to collecting any liquid on the site or groundwater, whatever the runoff, and taking care of that in a different way to, if there's really high concentrations of PFAS? That seems like something to start with. You're probably going to discuss that in some of the reports that you'll be talking about with Ecology, but just wondering if there's been any conversation about a different way to treat that water in the interim when other strategies are being developed.
I don't want to speak on Fairchild's behalf, but in communication with them, they have been looking at, applying SOX or infiltration systems to try to mitigate or minimize that. Excuse me. Overall, it still needs to drain, and that is their outfall area. So I do not have a clear answer on that. I know that they were trying to work on that. They are on pause mode, and I don't know where that goes, but we'll be following up.
This isn't a question for you, Lisa, but maybe for Commissioner French could chime in as to the funds that were granted to the county for the state for some of that cleanup out there in the West Plains, Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So last year, the county did submit a capital request to the legislature. The amount of the request was for 18 million, and of the 18 million, we got 7.5 million. And there were conditions associated with it in that we cannot use any of that money for testing, even for administrative costs. Now, the good news is the Department of Commerce, instead of taking their typical 10% off the top, only took 50,000 for administrative costs for commerce, and the county is paying for the administrative cost of the grant and also the implementation of the grant. So we have been working through the task force to structure how we can disperse and get that money out to build POET systems, point of entry treatment systems for folks. The health department through Dr. Velasquez, who's the co-chair on the task force with me. They are providing navigators to work with each one of the property owners to do an assessment as to the nature of their water systems and what it would take in POET systems to be able to get them whole in situations where they are not in need of a POET system, then undersea filtration or some other treatment process. So that is moving along really well. Dr. Velasquez gave an update for the task force last night, and they have one navigator already has agreed to work with us, and the other one is in the process of being contracted with. So we are moving with that, and we did do an RFP to identify contractors that have experience in installing the POET systems. And so we'll have, at this point, we have 3 contractors. We're going to try and see if we can get a couple more and then work with them to, one, make sure that they can, in fact, install the systems and that the customer service level is sufficient to be able to make sure that those folks that are being impacted by PFAS and have lost use of the water on their property are being taken care of and stuff. So that's kind of a real brief summary of where we're at with that grant. We have made another request for $10 million. The scope of this next request includes testing and includes navigators, and includes a broader range of services to be able to implement the program. So that's kind of a brief summary of where we're at with that grant program.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to circle back to Dave, and we may hop back and forth, but I want to go back to land utilization, Dave. Just quickly, you know, we have a Safe and Healthy Spokane Task Force ongoing, and we're looking at the siting of facilities. And Geiger had been on the table, and another site that had been proposed years ago. And so we were just wondering, is that land out there a viable location, or where's the conversations going with that? And Commissioner Jordan can hop in if I'm not articulating this right, since we're on the same task force. But that is a critical moment for us in Spokane County as we go forward. So if that's not an option, we want to take it off the table and move forward with what our other options are. So you can give us a high level and we can circle back around, but I just want to throw it out there.
Sure. Again, finding out about this over the last couple of weeks and becoming educated on it, I know that there was a siting study that was done. I think we're willing to have dialogue on the results of that study, where that stands from both a compatibility and availability perspective. The area on which Geiger presently sits is identified by the FAA as aeronautical use, and would probably continue so due to its location towards the core. So I think there would need to be further dialogue between airport staff and then those interested parties on the development of the correctional facility to determine what options still exist. But I know that there was a comprehensive site study or site analysis done. I don't know about how long ago that study was.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dave? Councilmember Dillon, I'm getting flip-flopping from commissioner to council members.
You mentioned really briefly before about a separate consultant that was looking at the contamination in Geiger. So is that connected to some of this land assessment, or is that a different process altogether? Could you speak at all what that consultant was doing?
To make sure that I understand the question, are you asking if the the availability of the land for expansion is tied to the, so
Yes.
the short answer to that is no.
Okay.
That is a separate issue. That was something that was presumably identified as part of GSI's investigation work. Yeah, historical investigation work. The designation of the site, say, as aeronautical, that was before that. The one there were not one and the same.
Mayor.
Thanks. The siting study that was done, I think probably that would be of interest of us, for many of us, just to see what those results were when that happened.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'd be happy to share with whomever is interested. So I don't believe it was our study, just to clarify. I think we got a copy of it, but we're happy to have dialogue on it.
All right, any other questions? Well, again, thank you, Airport, for coming. Again, we are meeting because the city and the county are both vested in the airport, so we need to have this time together periodically. So with that, thank you all. Again, reach out to the airport if you want more information or if you want a tour. I highly recommend it. And next, we're going to go on to Chris Pingra from S3R3. Chris, welcome wherever you are. Here he comes. Welcome. I think this is the first time you being before all of us, Mr. Pingra.
Indeed it is. I've given briefings to some of these bodies independently, but very much appreciate the opportunity to come meet with all of you. So city council members, county commissioners, and airport board members, thanks for having me. The PDA was founded in 2017 with direct advocacy and support from the airport board and in direct collaboration between the city and the county when they formed an interlocal agreement to stand up the PDA. And so I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to speak to each of you, because at the end of the day, the PDA is accountable to each of you for our performance in fulfilling the mission for which we were set up. So kind of just briefly, for those who, maybe all of you know this, but just in case, just introducing the board members from each of your bodies that sit on our board. We've got our county commissioner, Al French, serves as our chair currently. Our vice chair is CEO of Highline Grain, Paul Katovich. We've got board secretary Betsy Wilkerson, council president Wilkerson, thank you. Board treasurer is Spokane County CEO Scott Simmons, and then two other board members, Alex Scott and Dave Herring from the airport. So thank you all for your continued participation. And with that, I think it's worth noting that the entities that formed the PDA and are directly involved in the PDA, namely the airport, and then obviously city and county, while we have our own areas of responsibility and influence, I think it's pretty logical for the organization when they were first set up, because we've got some shared objectives around having a healthy and resilient economy and opportunity. Same thing that we want for ourselves, right? We want opportunities for ourselves and our families to increase our standard of living, have upward economic mobility. We all want opportunity, and we want it in a responsible way. And frankly, it was one of the most compelling reasons for me to take this role, and that I saw that there was a city and a county that were willing to come together to form under a collective agreement and share in the effort and share in the resources to stand that organization up. And believe it or not, over my decade plus in economic development, that's pretty rare. You wouldn't think so, but it is pretty rare. Lots of collaboration in other parts of the world, but this is a unique model. And in any case, I just thought it was worth mentioning that. The regional context of what we're doing in the West Plains represents, in my opinion, probably the greatest opportunity in Eastern Washington for economic development at a significant scale. So in the West Plains, we've got a large concentration of open, mostly greenfield sites that are already zoned for industrial development and are under the jurisdiction of motivated land use authorities that are willing to work together to help projects move forward. And we kind of sit in direct proximity and access to a large population center of urban, suburban, and rural communities. And to me, that's what economic development success ultimately looks like. If you're serving, all of those different cross sections of the community, that is a desirable outcome. And I think the West Plains is uniquely positioned to offer that to the entire region. So what does a PDA do in practice? We've got several roles. First and foremost, I'd say we're a coordinating and convening entity. So we help move projects forward that require coordination between the city, the county, the airport, and other external stakeholders. Development can be a complex process. There are many entities that have a part in that process, and we like to keep our eye on those things to make sure that they go smoothly. Yes, ma'am.
Chris, we're gonna bring you back because there's a lot about S3R3.
Yeah.
But I'd like you to get to some of these materials you bought, and then we got to end shortly in about 5 minutes to go into an executive session. So give me your Reader's Digest version, and you'll be first on our next joint meeting.
Absolutely, happy to. So I'll kind of hit the highlights on what we have accomplished over the last couple of years, and then where we're going for 2026. We've updated all of our brand assets, from the website to our marketing material that we use to communicate with site selectors that focus in specific target industries, which for us are aerospace, advanced manufacturing is kind of a catch-all, but advanced manufacturing. There is a life sciences profile, industry profile that will be coming. That's a target industry as well. Warehouse and logistics. And the materials that you have in front of you are print versions. We have digital versions as well that all kind of work as a cohesive cluster of assets, all aimed to capture information so that we can be more effective at our business development efforts. I'll give you just one example of the types of sophistication we're trying to put into what we're doing with business development. Our website, we've had it up for I think about 11 months now. Completely redid the website, and we're using the traffic and several benchmarks against a basket of 100 other economic development organizations and their websites to assess where are we. Do we have more traffic, less traffic? And what type of traffic? We're using measurements, and we're using AI tools to capture data and assess our performance. And then we're taking that data and in revising sections of the website to make sure that we're being as effective as we can. The whole reason we're doing that is we're a pretty small group. We're 2 individuals in total, 2 staff members. Jessica, who's here with us, we're adding one other for business development shortly. But we're small, and that means we need to be as efficient as we possibly can with every resource that we create or deploy. And the website information is just a proxy for what we're trying to do in all areas of our business development strategy. And I think over the last 2 years, we've made significant progress as well in working with each of the organizations represented here, both the airport, the city, and the county. Whether visible to each of you or not, we are working actively with members of each of your staffs to make sure we're aligned, we're communicating, and we're able to be as effective as possible when we work through those projects, or inevitably conflicts that may occur when we're going through the development process. We've been engaged in a lot of different business development activities, more than 20 outbound business development activities over the last year and a half, 2 years. And also I'll mention we've made significant progress on some of these things we've talked about while simultaneously going through some staff member changes, a retirement, a compulsory state audit that all public entities go through, and a wholesale change to our accounting and internal operations and controls. So it's been a lot to bite off and chew, but I'm really proud of where we're at. But the most exciting thing about all of that is we're really poised for 2026 to lean into our business development and the other kind of primary objective we have is making sure that we have sites that are ready for development. It's one thing to go out there and share the value proposition with businesses and entities and trying to bring them here, but you have to have somewhere to put them. So another objective that we have, which is a very high priority this year, is to make sure that we have collected data, we understand what the existing conditions are for all viable industrial sites, so that when we get that interest, we have a product that we can share in a great place for those businesses to land. Yeah, I'll cut the corner on that. I'll just end by saying I am really excited about what 2026 is shaping up to be. And I just appreciate the time to share a little bit with you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Quick questions because we have a tight timeline. Councilmember Cathcart, then Commissioner French.
Yeah, just a quick comment to this group. I think if we, and hopefully we can get together again near term, but I think a broader economic development discussion would be great use of that time, and to have a follow-up presentation from SVR3, but also including the other PDAs, the Northeast PDA in particular. You know, we have similar outcomes that we're pursuing, but very uniquely situated, you know, in different ways. And so I think a broader conversation on what the potential hurdles are and you know, what the steps are that we're taking would be a really good discussion point. So we just encourage that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Commissioner French.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to give you a little bit more foundational background in terms of how we got to the creation of the PDA, the West Plains PDA. When I was on the city council, I got to watch Cabela and Buck Knives go to Kootenai County instead of being in Spokane. And it's because the culture at the city, and that's when I was on the city council, the culture in the city was if the city won, the county lost. If the county won, the city lost. And we competed against each other while we watched businesses go across the state line. And so in 2011, it created the original documents that led to the creation of the PDA, which was the revenue sharing agreement. And basically it just says we grow as a region and we grow together and we share in the revenue. And that's exactly what has happened since the PDAs have been created and stuff. And so that foundational element about how we got here is critical about how we grow as a region. So I just wanted to share that background for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. French. Thank you, Chris. We'll be meeting again soon. I'm going to call up Mr. Piccolo to read us into executive session. And so please, for those who are not elected, please be making your way out of the area as we will immediately go into executive session. Thank you.
Good morning. Mike Piccolo, City Attorney. Yeah, so we're asking for an executive session on potential litigation for 30 minutes. We can go into that session now.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Mr. Piccolo, who else is going to stay in the room other than the elected?